Sandra for reading. Good morning, friends. My name is Tim, and I add my welcome to Hugh's welcome. Thanks for joining us this Good Friday. Happy Good Friday to you. Thank you very much for being here. And on behalf of Newington Anglican Church, our new church at Newington, which has been going for about 5 months, welcome to you. Really, really good to see you. Now, is the mic okay? I'm looking at Sean. The level's okay? Right? Great. You're happy? Thumbs up from Sean. Excellent. We really love to succeed, don't we? We love success. So let me tell you about some of my success, or my boy's success, to be honest. Because just recently, my boy Sammy, who's 6 years old, played in his first ever soccer game. Just a couple of weeks ago, playing for the local team, the Newington Gunners. Yes, there's a picture of it, right? Newington Gunners, a couple of weeks ago, Sammy, 6 years old, playing for the under-7s. His first ever game. Now, he was nervous. First game. I was nervous. First time as a soccer dad. On the sideline. What do I do? How do I help him? I was really, really nervous. We're into the second half. It's 0-0. There's a group forming at near the goal, because with under-7 soccer, they all just follow the ball around together. You can throw a blanket over the ball and you cover the team, but both teams. Sammy, up near the goal, suddenly bursts forward, dribbling the ball with amazing skills, which he learned from his dad. Amazing, amazing. He lines up the goal, lines it up. Bang! Goal! He scored. Friends, come on, clap. That's what I was doing. I was clapping, I was fist pumping. That's my boy. Go, Sammy! We love to succeed, right? We love it, don't we? Even something like the under-7s for the Newington Gunners, it was actually an internal trial game. But I was cheering. We just love it, don't we? We love to succeed. We love to win. I've actually got his jersey, the jersey he was wearing when he scored his first goal. Now, I'm happy to auction this over but my starting price is $1 million. One day this will be worth $1 million. Okay? One day. You can take it today if you want. Starting at $1 million. Because we just love to succeed. We love winning, don't we? All of us do. I live just over there, here in Newington. And ANZ Stadium is just over there. You can see it from the school. Now, when the Western Sydney Wanderers are playing at ANZ Stadium, and yes, one day my boy will play for the Western Sydney Wanderers, and will play for them, yes he will, when the wind is blowing in the right direction, and there's a goal, we in our home can hear the roar of the crowd. And it's a wonderful sound. It's the sound of success. It's the sound of the celebration of success. Because we love to win. Maybe the only thing better than succeeding is celebrating success. Tasting the glory. Sharing the glory. Telling the stories. We just love to succeed. And I think all of you are probably very successful people. That's why you get to live in a beautiful part of Sydney like this. You wouldn't be able to live here if you hadn't have been successful. So you like success, you've worked hard to succeed, and you've done it, and it's great, isn't it? In fact, I think often that's why people like to have money. It's not necessarily just the money. It's that our money is a sign of our success. If we're wealthy and people see that we're wealthy, they know we've made it. We've achieved. We've won. We've been successful. I saw this quote from Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump's he's an easy target, Donald Trump, I know. But Donald Trump has been successful, right? He's learning how to be successful as a president, but he's been successful in business. He's made money. Look at this quote. I found this very interesting. Look at this quote. Money was never a big motivation for me, except as a way to keep score. Isn't it interesting? You see, it wasn't just the money for Donald Trump, it's having more money. It's having more than the next guy. It's winning. And so Donald Trump's great wealth, it says to everyone else, I'm the best. I'm one. I've made more than you. I have succeeded. We love to succeed, don't we? We love success and we love to celebrate success. Which is why Good Friday is a very odd day, isn't it? I mean, here we are, meeting in the name of Jesus, who died on Good Friday. What is going on there? It really doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I know many of you are. As followers of Jesus, shouldn't we be embarrassed about this day? Why would we meet on Good Friday? Why would we have church? Shouldn't we wait till Easter Sunday? Celebrate Jesus' resurrection? Good Friday? And why is it called Good Friday? That's bizarre, isn't it? Why is it, friends, that Christians celebrate the day Jesus died? Well, that's what I hope you'll come to understand as we look at this part of the Bible together. I hope you'll be able to see the goodness of Good Friday and celebrate with Christians. I want to show you the victory in the death of Jesus. But it doesn't look like victory, does it? It looks like defeat. Jesus has just been sentenced to death by Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate hands Jesus over to his soldiers, and the humiliation is horrible. Let me read again a few of the verses that Sandra just read. You might like to follow on the screen, but again, just imagine the scene, friends. They stripped off Jesus' clothes and put a scarlet robe on him. They made a crown out of thorn branches and placed it on his head, and they put a stick in his right hand. The soldiers knelt down and pretended to worship him. They made fun of him and shouted, "Hail, you King of the Jews!" Then they spit on him. They took the stick from him and beat him on the head with it. There's about 600 soldiers doing this, friends. It was a Roman battalion or cohort which numbered 600 soldiers. 600 men versus Jesus. It's not good odds. It's not really fair, is it? They strip him naked. You can imagine the humiliation at that point. Jesus stripped naked before 600 Roman soldiers, who then played dress up with Jesus. They dress him up as a pretend king. The scarlet robe, it was probably one of their red soldiers' robes that the Roman soldiers wore. A crown of thorns on his head, which probably pierced the flesh so that blood dripped down off his head, and a staff in his hand, and then this awful pretend worship. It's all a big sarcastic mockery. And you see some of the verbs that are used. They mock him, they spit on him, they beat him. A display of sarcasm, a display of mockery. The whole message is very clear. You're no king at all. That's the message. You are a failed, defeated king. That's what Rome is saying to Jesus in this treatment. And then they lead him out to the crucifixion. Crucifixion was the ultimate punishment in the ancient world. It was the most cruel and humiliating death that the Romans could come up with for an enemy of the state. The Romans thought it was more humiliating than being beheaded. That was just too quick. More humiliating than being burned alive. Crucifixion was the punishment of choice for an enemy of the state. And so that's what they did for Jesus. They wanted it to be public so that everybody would see. Matthew tells us about the crowds passing by in verse 39. Because that's where Jesus was crucified publicly, so that all could get the message. This is what happens if you take on Rome. This is what happens to an enemy of the state. And then that mocking sign above Jesus. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Again, it's sarcasm. Sarcasm. He's a failed king. That's the message that the Romans are giving to the world. The soldiers gamble for his clothes. They care more about his clothes, his bloody clothes, than they do about his life, draining away on the cross above them. Ancient Rome, friends, was an honour and shame culture, and this was all about shame. It was shaming Jesus. If our culture is about success and failure, Jesus' death is all about failure. It's about losing. And it's a death that has been mocked ever since. Some of us in our regular church will know this story. I've told it before, but it's very interesting. Look at this piece of mockery of Jesus on the cross from about 100 years after Good Friday. It's a piece of graffiti that was found on a stone in Rome near something called Circus Maximus, and it's mockery of Jesus on the cross. The person on your left there is a man called Alexamenos. He's a follower of Jesus. He's a Christian and he's worshipping Jesus. That's why his arm is pointed towards Jesus on the cross. But look at how Jesus is drawn. He's drawn as a donkey. Again, the message is, if Jesus ended up on a cross, he's just a donkey of a man. He's no God at all. He's no king at all. And the graffiti down the bottom in Greek says, Alexamenos worships his God. Jesus on the cross being mocked, followers of Jesus being mocked. And it just keeps going, doesn't it? There was one Easter for me a number of years ago. I was away from church because we were on a holiday and we were camping in the bush with some family friends, some friends of my parents. I didn't know them too well, but they were lovely people, really beautiful people. And as we arrived to this holiday, on the Thursday night before Good Friday, camping in the bush, they said to my parents and to me, of course we'll pause tomorrow, Good Friday, to remember the death of Jesus Christ. And I was a Christian, and my heart skipped with a little bit of joy. Here we were in the bush, and these family friends I was just getting to know said, we're going to remember Jesus, we're going to stop, we're going to remember the death of Jesus. But then Friday came around and we didn't pause, we didn't stop. And I learned that they were just being sarcastic, they were just mocking, even the thought that Jesus died on the cross and that we might even stop and remember that. They were having a joke at the whole concept of Easter. It was the same sarcastic, biting mockery that the Romans and the Jews are participating in on that very first Good Friday. And yet, you are here today, and around our country and around our world, hundreds of thousands, millions of people are meeting to celebrate this day, to celebrate this great defeat. Why? Why on earth? It doesn't make sense. Let me read on. Because it's not just the Jews, it's not just the Romans that mock Jesus, it's the Jews as well. Jesus' own people, or Jesus was a Jew. Their abuse is different. But the Romans knew that Jesus claimed to be a king, but the Jews knew. Jesus claimed to be the king, the capital K king, the Messiah. The king not just for Rome, but for the whole world, the one God promised. And yet when the Jews see Jesus up on the cross, their mocking joins the voices of the Romans. In their mind, there's no way God's king could end up dying on a cross. Look again at a few verses that Sandra read. Look again as I read. This is the Jewish leaders, the chief priests, the leaders, and the teachers of the law of Moses also made fun of Jesus. They said, he saved others, but he can't save himself. If he's the king of Israel, he should come down from the cross. Then we will believe him. He trusted God. So let God save him if he wants to. He even said he was God's son. And they've got a point, don't they? How could God's king end up dead? How could God let him die on the cross? If he really was God's son, he's another pretend Messiah, a false Messiah, a fake king. And there were many of them, friends. There were many before Jesus, and there were many after the resurrection of Jesus. One of them was a man, Simon Bar Kokhba, who led a Jewish rebellion against the Romans about 100 years after Jesus walked on earth. Simon Bar Kokhba. The Jews were excited. They thought that he was the Messiah who would bring in Jewish success, bring the Jews in power again over the Romans. But the whole thing was crushed. Simon was killed, the revolt was crushed, and it ended. So these Jewish leaders, as they look at Jesus, they just think the same thing's going on. Another fake king, someone else having a go. Obviously, not the promised Messiah. And then it seems as though God himself rejects Jesus. The whole world is united against him, but then it seems that God, his Father, has rejected him. Because look at what Jesus says. Jesus' final words. My God, why have you deserted me? So there it is, the cross of Christ. A story of failure and shame. Shouldn't we call this day Black Friday? You know, there is a Black Friday in Australia. There was a terrible bushfires back in 1939. January 1939, 71 people lost their lives. It was a Friday. So that Friday in January is now Black Friday. It's a day of grieving, a day of mourning. Isn't this our Black Friday? Easter Friday? The day that Jesus was shamefully killed. The day even his Father forsook him. There's another way of looking at it, friends. There's another way of looking at it. Yes, it was an awful and horrible day. A day of great evil. When Jesus, God himself, was killed on a cross. But there's something else going on. There's another way of looking at it. I've got a little exercise for you. A little exercise. And you'll see why I'm doing this in just a second. But first I'm going to test your mathematical skills. We're at school, aren't we? We're going to do a bit of work. A bit of schoolwork. I know the kids who came here really wanted that when they came here. So we're going to do a bit of maths. Here's a puzzle. You can read it there. I want you to answer it. You've got 10 seconds. What is the number of the parking space containing the car? You've got to look at the pattern of numbers, friends. I'm going to read them. You can't see them. 16, 6, 68, 88. Then the answer, what is it? The one on the right, 98. 10 seconds. Go. Work it out for me. Work it out for me. But don't yell the answer if you know the answer. Let the rest of us figure it out. Some clever people in this school. Newington Public. 16, 6, 68, 88. Then what is it? 98. All right, enough. Time's up. Who knows the answer? Who knows the answer? Summer verse. What's the answer? 87. Just turn it upside down, and it's a bit easier. Turn it upside down, and it makes sense, doesn't it? Right? 86, 87. The numbers are upside down. Okay. Now, what's this got to do with my story? What's going on here, friends? You're very clever. You did very well. I couldn't get that. I took ages. My simple point is this, friends. There's another way of looking at things, isn't there? When you look at it from the top down, like we just had it there, when you look at it from the top down, it makes sense. And that's what I want to do with Jesus' cross. I want us to look at it from the top down. That is, from God's perspective. We've been thinking about how it looks from our perspective, from man's perspective. And it just looks like failure and defeat, doesn't it? But what about when we look at it from the top? From what God himself says about it? Because throughout this passage, there's something else going on. Matthew is doing something that we can miss here. Matthew is working really hard to show us that all of this is happening in fulfillment of God's promises. All of it is a part of God's plan. God's plan from way back in time. And we know it because God said he would do it this way hundreds of years beforehand in the first part of our Bibles, our Old Testaments. I'm going to show you just a few passages, right, from the Old Testament, 600 years before the death of Jesus, 1,000 years before the death of Jesus. And notice the links, friends. Notice the links, okay? So these are old promises or old prophecies that God made. Have a look at this one from Isaiah. Isaiah 50, verse 6. Talking about a servant who would come. I didn't turn aside when they insulted me and spit in my face. We recognise that, don't we? That's just happened. Jesus has been spat at. No, he didn't do a thing. Okay, next one. What about the next one? Psalm 22. 1,000 years before Good Friday. They took my clothes and gambled for them. That just happened, didn't it? Matthew's just told us about it. Okay, next one. Psalm 69, verse 21. When I was thirsty, they gave me vinegar. But that happened to Jesus. He was given sour wine as he died. What about this one? Again, Isaiah. He was counted among the rebels. That happened to Jesus. There was a rebel on his right, there was a rebel on his left. One more. Psalm 22, verse 1 begins like this. My God, why have you deserted me? This is all a part of God's plan. God is in complete control here, friends, on this